Me too. Well, welcome to Millennials in Ministry. So glad to have you, Benji. And I came across you searching on Instagram for people, young preachers, young millennials in ministry, and I found Dear Young Preacher Co.
Yes.
that Instagram that you manage and that you created. So tell us a little bit about Dear Young Preacher, how that got started, why you're doing it, what you're up to.
Awesome. Yeah. Once again, just want to thank you for having me on your vlog.
Sure.
I think it's really cool when, young people, especially Christians, could come together and dialogue, and not only just dialogue, but also just build the faith together. So this is something I'm really excited about. If you're watching, stay for the whole episode. It's going to be dope. It's going to be good. But yeah, dearyoungpreacher.co. It started on a 6-hour road trip from North Carolina to Atlanta. I was with a mentor of mine, and he was like, he made me read this book. I think we talked about it, Gary V, the legend himself. And he made me read it and really began to think and process through what it meant to have an identity of self. So began to think through that and who am I and all of these different questions. And I recognized that as someone who was young, a preacher growing up in the game, the preaching world, preaching since I was 13 at a Haitian church in Boston. I see you kids, and recognizing that, a lot of times that I wish there was a structure or system or way to follow and understand this way of ministry. And so Dear Young Preacher started almost as like, I'm a walker and talker.
Oh, do you, bro?
But
Do you?
it started as really this way of, recognizing when I was younger and I didn't have the tools or the resources to connect with others. So what does that look like for me to pour into the next generation of young people who want to step into ministry, and to really have them hone in on their skills, hone in on the craft of preaching, but also just their general walk with God. And so it's been a dope process. We started videos in January. So we're at 4 months now, which is crazy.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, the opportunities, the doors God has opened, it's been great for sure.
That's so cool, man. Well, tell me, why do you want to be a preacher, or where did that desire start for you?
Yeah. Fun fact, I actually never wanted to be a preacher. I remember growing up young in the Haitian church, all the elders, the old Haitians would be like, Benji, you're going to be a preacher. I was like, no, I'm going to the NBA. That's just, I didn't play. I wasn't good, but I was like, no way. No, preaching is not for me. And my mom's best friend ran the youth ministry. And so at age 13, she was like, hey, I want you to lead a lesson. I mean, I still have that first sermon I ever wrote. I mean, it's I thought I was preaching for 30 minutes, but it was probably like 5 minutes total.
Right.
Everything's written word for word. It's like pause here so they could say amen. God is good, parentheses all the time. Very structured. And so it's cool to now look back and be like, wow, we've come a long way. But I think it started with people investing and believing in me, and wanting to see a passion thrive within me. I never really took it seriously till I was about 16 years old. But since then, it's been a joy and a journey. I'm 21 years old now, and it's been dope. It's been really cool living for the kingdom. Yeah.
Well, last time we talked, you mentioned how you feel like your life message is inspiring people to discover their purpose. That purpose is a big thing for you. And so tell us a little bit about how did you discover your purpose? And then when you encourage other people, how do you encourage other people to discover theirs?
Yeah, great question. I remember someone telling me you can sense glimpses of purpose throughout your walk. And so this dude, he was like, I knew I was there was this passion within me to preach, because ever since I was a kid, the mic just always gravitated towards me, and I would have it, and I'd be speaking. I mean, even the play mics, and that's a funny example. But I think there's like some truth to that statement. There's glimpses of purpose that God puts throughout your life. And so you have the ability to note and see where God is moving on a very minuscule scale. But sometimes it could be like God is showing you this little thing now, and one day maybe you'll be able to step into that greater thing. And I know that's what it was for me with preaching. I'm huge on passion and purpose. I always smile when I talk about passion and purpose. Because if you could live on purpose and if you could live with passion, and if more people did that, the world would be so different. I'm a big believer that if you're passionate about anything, then you can make other people passionate about it. And so when two people are passionate about something, I mean, one could chase 1,000, two could bring 10,000 to flight. I mean, it's like there's so much more potential when, you know, passionate people, hi, Antonio, there's so much more potential, you know. I'm a firm believer that if you're passionate, you could get someone else passionate. And for Christians to be passionate, that's what the world needs, you know, like for Christians to really be on fire, for Christians to really step into this thing, like with passion and purpose. Passion always follows purpose. That's dope. I totally agree with that quote. I mean, the two can't be distinguished. And when you have them, and I'm never saying it's easy because, you know, I have passion, but there are times when, you know, I also need the discipline, you know, because passion can only bring you so far. And there's times where I feel like, I'm passionate, I have purpose, but I doubt it at the same time, you know. But I think the two in tandem work really well together to really push us into the call that God's given us.
That's really good. Now, along with passion and purpose, you've been in youth ministry for a long time, right? Since you were a young teenager. We talked about that. I want to ask you, with all of your experience being in different youth groups and being a part of running youth ministries, what makes good youth ministries good and what makes bad youth ministries bad from your perspective?
Yeah, this is great because I'm a senior at Gordon. And have been applying to jobs. So this is like an interview. So this is good.
Okay.
So what makes good youth ministries good? I think there's top 4. I just chose a random number. Preachers choose 3. I'll choose 3. There we go. Number 1, really good. You got to preach the gospel. I mean, that goes without stated, but sometimes it needs to be stated, you know? Preaching the gospel, it's clear throughout the Bible. You preach the good news and people will come. And so 1, preach the gospel. Number 2, have a vision. I mean, we know in the Bible it says lack of vision, people perish, but we still don't take it seriously. You know, if a leader is able to rally his leaders and the youth around a vision, around a goal, around where he believes God is calling the group to, I mean, they could go so far. It's the same passion, you know, if I could ignite one person from where I'm believing God is calling and leading us, then it's like we could go so much farther than, well, we're just doing this because, you know, we're doing it. And number 3, the youth have to be doing the ministry. I think a big thing that I've seen in youth ministries that aren't as effective is that it kind of becomes babysitting. You know, the youth are there and they're watching people perform, hands crossed, chilling. They go sit down for, you know, the word. They might fall asleep, be on their phones the whole time. But it goes to empowerment. And so if the youth are doing the ministry, if the youth are leading worship, that inspires the other youth to be like, wow, I could be like them. You know, young people could speak to young people so much better than we can, you know? And we're young, but it's like young people, I mean, peers have so much more of a greater effect. So you have youth groups. I mean, I remember being at interning at a church in North Carolina this summer, and we had the opportunity to train 5 students to preach a sermon series for a whole month, which was the dopest thing. Seeing like the call begin to manifest in them. But I mean, the coolest thing from that series was how on fire the other students got. You know, they were like, wow, like I could be serving God like this. I could be on fire for God. I don't have to be ashamed. I don't have to worry. You know, I have people around me who are living completely sold out for the kingdom, I could step and do the same. And so I think those are three things.
That, like for me, you're talking about passion and purpose. My passion was birthed when other people gave me a shot. It gave me a shot at speaking, or gave me a shot at, hey, you lead this, or how about you take this? And in youth group, you know what I mean? All my life, it's people giving me a shot, or believing in me, or seeing something in me, and then taking a risk and a chance at, hey, let's see what else is in her. You know what I'm saying? And then you're right. Like once the youth, and I've seen that too, once I saw my peers do stuff that I thought was like a little bit crazy, I'm like, well, wait a minute, I want to be crazy too. You know, like it takes that one person to step out and do something crazy that really gets the culture moving in that direction. So I love what you said.
Totally. I mean, I'd even say leadership styles have changed. You know, like while I was younger and, you know, the generation before us, it was a very like the leader is the one with the title, the one with power. Leadership nowadays is, I mean, who can I empower? How can I give you power in your circle to then influence change?
I so believe that.
I mean, to all the young preachers and leaders out there, that's just my encouragement to you, to empower the people you're around, to give them responsibility, to give them an increased role, to step into what they might believe God is pushing them towards.
Yeah, it's so good, dude. I love that. So tell me, like, what advice or encouragement would you give to someone else that's walking in the same journey as you? You know, they feel called to preach. They feel like this is a call of God on their life. What advice would you give to other peers that are walking in the same path?
Good question. Two things. Number one, stay hungry. I think it's a sad thing to see. I've known a lot of people who I felt like were called, who I felt like were real like power heads that God marked. And they got to a place where, you know, they didn't see the affirmation that other people were getting. They weren't as noticed. And so they just kind of let it go. And to see some of them now, to see, you know, all the potential that I thought was in them before, and to see almost a shell of a person now. And so stay hungry. I think that's a huge thing. Goes into the passion and purpose. But like never forget the drive and the thing that pushed you to initially start. The second thing is trust the process. And I think that's something God's been teaching me recently. You know, there's a process to this thing. You know, it's not wake up one day, you got a following of like 10,000 people in your church. But it's like in your day-to-day, what actions, what are you reaping? What are you sowing? You know, what actions are you planning in your day-to-day life that will result in your eventual future? All the little things matter. And, you know, a lot of us preachers and young leaders, charismatic kind of guys who like to smile, and women too, you know, we like to use personality, and, you know, it becomes so much easier. But it's like trusting the process that, you know, my personality, my charisma isn't enough to get me to where God has called me to do. You know, the gift is good, but the giver is so much better than the gift. And so how can I lean on the giver so much more than my ability to smile and laugh and make other people smile and laugh too? And so I think it's a recognition of, like trusting that God is bringing me through a process, and I don't know what the end goal is going to be. Which is cool. Quick tangent. I mean, I talked about this in one of my episodes, this idea of calling. And I feel like a lot of people struggle with calling because they're like, okay, if I make this decision, if I go in this direction, what if it's not like in the plan that God had for me? Then I'm messing up God's plan. Read this article by this dude from Fuller Theological Seminary. He said, calling is simply stepping into situations where you're loving and serving others. And so you could go to Africa, you could go to your backyard, and you'd still be in the call and the will of God, which has changed my view on it drastically. Because it's like a lot of the times I'm like, oh my gosh, like, God, what if I choose the wrong place? What if I'm doing the wrong, you know what? But it's like, as long as you're loving others and serving others, you're in God's call. I mean, we look at all the people of faith in the
Yeah.
whole Bible and we see the end
Right.
and we're like, man, like, you know, yeah, but none of them knew the end from when they began. You know,
Right.
Peter didn't know where he'd end up. Saul didn't know.
Yep.
Abraham, the man of faith, didn't know that a walk from Ur to Israel, you know, would amount in him being the father of many nations.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think we need to understand call better and have a shift of perspective. And when that shift comes, I mean, then it's like, it's almost this burden is lifted, but we're also able to serve God so much more with like love and power and fullness. Because we're like, you know, maybe, you know, this might not be the right thing, but I'm like, I'm going to trust God that he's in the process. And so, you know, I could be choosing wrong, but it's like God's plan is so much bigger than my understanding of it. And so he will accomplish whatever he set out to accomplish at the end of the day. You got me preaching, Erin. You got me preaching.
Dude, send me your address so I can send an offering, man. I'm gonna send it your way. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, okay, so this is my last question, but it kind of goes along with everything you just said. We were just talking about advice you'd give to peers that are walking the same journey as you. But last time we talked, we talked about mentorship too, and the lessons that you're learning from mentors in this season of your life.
For sure.
So what would you say is the biggest lesson you're learning from your mentors right now? And I don't know if it's the same thing or maybe there's something else that triggers your mind in another area. But what do you feel like you're learning from mentors right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's definitely a sense of trusting the process that's being communicated as well. But, well, one, a plug. Everyone, you need a mentor. It was explained to me like this. Everyone needs 3 layers. So you have a mentor who's ahead of you. You have people in your same circle, and then people that you're feeding. So it's like this constant cycle of like, you're always being fed, but you're also always feeding, and you're in relationship with people who are doing the same. So you're always in this process of learning. And so I'm a huge advocate. I love mentoring. I think it's like really important. And so if you don't have a mentor, find a mentor, hit somebody up, DM somebody, pray on it. I don't know, but I'm a real advocate for it. But I mean, we talked about this, and I think one of the biggest things that has been communicated to me by a mentor was to have a better sense of the intangibles. I met with a pastor. He was like, you know, a lot of young preachers, and we talked about this, and so this is funny. Yeah, a lot of young preachers.
It's my favorite part.
He said, a lot of young preachers nowadays, you know, they focus on the gift of communicating. And so they focus on the words, they focus on the rhythm, how, you know, the word, I mean, how it comes out, you know, the delivery of preaching, which is great. The dude's like, that is great. It's important. Me, he said, I'm an average, mediocre preacher. I'm not that good. But the reason my church is growing, the reason God has shown himself faithful is because I have this sense of the intangible things. I was like, what do you mean intangible things? He was like, there was a season of his life where God really birthed in him a spirit of fasting and prayer and really seeking his face. And so the point he was making was a lot of young preachers, they could know how to preach. They know the skill. They know the ways to bring words together to draw a reaction. But we don't know the intangible things. We're not good at fasting, you know, which is a biblical mandate. We're not good at seeking God. We're not good at, you know, waiting on God and not only just talking to him, but actually just listening for his voice. You know, the old saints used to be like, we would tarry in his presence. I don't know what tarry means. What? I'm like, okay,
I need a
God.
microwave answer.
I'm like, God, I prayed for 5 minutes. You here yet? I mean, it's it's funny, but there's so much truth to it. And so I think for me, you know, he's like the biggest thing, and we kind of touched on it earlier, you know, it's young people were relying on the gift, but we need to go back to the giver of the gift because he could bring it so much farther than we ever can. And so, you know, preparing and practicing on the gift, it's good, it's important, but it has to come second to that personal walk with God.
Yeah.
You know, I felt God saying to me, you know, I'm trying to make you a water hose, but you're kind of like a pond right now, because you're not seeking me daily, or you're just seeking me for the sake of a sermon. And I was like, I was hit, you know, I was like, ooh, you know, like, wow. But I mean, I think that the truth that was revealed through that has made me so much more passionate. And I'm like, man, okay, I gotta be in my word. I gotta be seeking his face. I gotta be knowing what he's saying. Because God, I see it like this. You know, the old radio stations, you know, now kids back in, you know, now kids, they got Apple Music, they got access. Yeah, they got access to music whenever. But when I was growing up, we had the radio. You got to turn it to the station. God is like the radio. You know, he's always speaking, and our job is to find the frequency that he's on. You know, he's always live. He's always speaking every moment, every second. He's always doing something. And so we're turning the frequency to be like, okay, where is God? You know, but a lot of times we just can't find God. And so God's like, man, I'm trying to speak to you. I'm trying to let you know. I'm trying to give you a new revelation, but you're only seeking me, you know, when you got to prep a sermon. You know, how am I going to change your walk? How am I going to change the walk of others around you if you're limiting my power? I mean, one of the things fasting was taught to me as, you know, we have the spirit man and the flesh man, or the flesh woman, you know, and it's like the flesh, I mean, we see it in the Bible, spirit is willing, flesh is weak. The flesh is so much louder than the spirit man. And so when I'm hungry, I know I'm hungry. And so I get McDonald's. You know, I get food because I know I'm hungry. But you never know when you're spiritually hungry. You never know when you're like spiritually lacking and you need like the sustenance to carry you on. And so fasting is saying, I'm going to silence the loud flesh man in order for me to be more in tune with God. And so there's fast, where people just unplug from social media, food, Daniel fast, water fast. I mean, there's all these different, but it's like the point of it is silencing the flesh so that I can hear God speak to the spirit more. And I mean, there's been moments where I fasted and it's like, wow, like my spirit was really like hungry and I just didn't know at all. And I was kind of like living this life without being fed and kind of at this stagnant level. But then, you know, once you get through that fast and God of it, and it's like, wow, this is where it should be, you know, it's supposed to be high. It's supposed to, wow, oh my God, this is what it's supposed to feel like to be in relationship with God. But a lot of the times we just, you know, let that flesh speak louder. So we don't know when the spirit's hungry. We don't know when the spirit, you know, wants to speak, when the Holy Spirit is trying to move within us. But we're just like, nah, I don't hear it. I don't hear it.
Yeah.
So intangibles.
I so love that. And it's so true. It's easier to know when my body's hungry than it is for me to know when my spirit is hungry. Because, and I think to go along with that, because we consume so much content in today's culture, it's easy to hide our spiritual hunger because
for sure
we can just listen to music or even just put on a you know what I'm saying? Put on a podcast or a video or a movie, or it's like these entertainment things. They're not bad. I enjoy them, but I think it sometimes hides the seriousness of our spiritual hunger at times, which makes us not really know where we're at, which then in turn our spirit's dying slowly and we don't even know it. You know what I'm saying? Dang, it's good. You got me thinking a lot, Benji. It's good. It's good content, man. Well, I so appreciate you coming on to Millennials in Ministry today and just sharing your thoughts. And I'm so happy I got to connect with you. And I'm hoping that, could you tell the audience just how they can stay in touch with you, where they can follow you, maybe something you got going on next few months or something like that?
Yeah. Follow me. Once again, thank you for having me. I really think it's cool connecting millennials in ministry. We're that generation that's about to step into this thing called church. And so having the opportunity to connect and network and really rely on each other will go so much farther, you know. Leadership, I mean, it's recognizing that I can't do everything alone. I need others around me. I need others speaking into my life and into my perspective, because I can't always see things. And so this is awesome what you're doing. Thanks for having me as a guest. If you want to connect with me, follow me, dearyoungpreacher.co. all one word, dearyoungpreacher.co. It's a website, and so you could write it in the URL, or you could just search it on Instagram. I release weekly videos on YouTube, ranging from things like the call to passion, to culture, to, I mean, the last video we did, which is coming out tomorrow, actually, so you can check that out. It's about women. Cool. It's called Dear Young Female Preachers.
Wow.
And I got a friend of mine.
That one out.
Yeah. I got a friend of mine who stepped in, took over the whole episode. And I'm excited. I think it was dope. And so to see the finished product will be awesome. And so
that's super cool.
Connect with me there. Yeah.
Awesome. We'll definitely stay in touch. I appreciate your time. Sure. It's been a great episode, and man, have a great day.
Thank you so much. Peace.
You're welcome, man. See you later.
Bye.